We have started recording. There we go. Looks like a slideshow, Ed.
Yep, 1 second. I've got to okay.
And let's do this. I am going to, as we normally do, I will mute everybody, and Ed, you need to unmute yourself. So Ed, you need.
I am unmuted. Can you hear me?
I can.
Okay. I'm getting some strange things on my screen. I'm a little confused here. I don't know. It says I should be able to move it, but I can't.
You can't click and drag it, huh?
No. Ah.
There it goes. No.
No, it's coming back.
We love gremlins.
Never had this happen before.
No. How about, why don't you unshare and share again and see if we get rid of it?
How's
Okay.
that?
It's working.
Okay. This is not going to be a typical talk for me. It's kind of a fun talk. The French area 1 centime rate has always fascinated me, including simple 1 centime rates and wrapper banded postcards. Examples from France can be found. Examples from the Offices and Colonies are rarer. I had a few examples of simple 1 centime franked with group type. I foolishly thought about doing a 1-frame exhibit on the 1 centime frankings, but finally thought better of it. Today, I'm going to present some ramblings in this area. And I looked up ramble to forewarn you all. A ramble is a walk for pleasure, typically without a definite route. Okay, with that said, here we go. The material I'm presenting is from, in part, my collection. It's also from collections and suggestions from the members of the France and Colonies group and COLFRA. It seems many have been intrigued by this material. And also I've grabbed a couple from auction sales, auction and mail sales, just to talk about and pontificate about with time. Here's a starter example from a recent sale in France. It's just the 1 centime Napoleon on a printed piece. We don't know what the piece is. I'm still getting stuff that's trying to block my view here.
It's clear to us, Ed.
Okay. Well, it says at the bottom something about the harvest. I have the English translation. But that's normally what you see at the beginning of these rates. I don't have any prior to the introduction of the 1 centime stamps. Here's one that was just in the bear sale that just closed a couple of days ago. And you see it's the 1 centime Napoleon with that big corner margin. And Bear claimed a catalog value of 20,000 euros with a starting price of 25,000 euros. and claimed it was in superb condition. And when I looked at it, I noted that it does look like a full print, business sheet. It had a wrapper. It had the stamp with the margin, and the wrapper and part of the stamp got torn away. And I did look up superb in the English dictionary, and it said marked to the highest degree by grandeur, excellence, brilliance, or competence. And I really don't think this is a superb piece. It's certainly an unusual piece, and I guess it didn't get much action because it didn't sell. Here's one that comes from Tom Mara, brought to our attention from a recent parasale. It's a 1 centime printed matter from Pondicherry, French India, to the Rouen area. The problem is there was no 1 centime rate from Pondicherry to France in 1874. And the 1 centime Napoleon was not issued for use in the colonies, only the 5 centime was. And there's no further information on this franking. This is just from the catalog, so it's hard to see. If you just blow it up a little bit, you can almost see the Pondicherry. There's no French post office that I could find beginning POND or PON that would match. I'm a little concerned about this. Up here at the top, it should have INDE for the postmark, and this certainly. Can you see my arrow?
Yes.
Okay. This certainly doesn't look like an E. It looks a bit like a B or maybe a 3 or something. So I would just label this item as suspicious, and I wouldn't share much interest. Now we get to some of the material I have with the 1 centime perforated Napoleon, and this was the first time I had seen a blue bordered wrapper before. This was posted from Colmar to Colmar, and you see a docketing at the upper left in what looks like an older hand. And I couldn't quite read that at first. It looked like HAIBBANCE, and I spoke to Loic about it, and he said, no, that's NAIS. So what this is some sort of birth announcement that came in blue. I think Roumet has one in his current sale. He says it's a marriage announcement. So the only thing I can conclude is maybe in France at the time, blue was for good events. Just thought I'd show a close-up of the stamp in the back, and a little picture of Colmar. My wife's family is, part of my wife's family is from Colmar. And this is what the downtown looks like. Bit of a fairy tale city. Here's a standard example on a printed item. It's from Valence to Valence. It's a legal announcement from a law firm, and you see a little indicia here to tell you to look at the back. And when you look at the back, you can see the addressee is deceased, so it was returned and made its way to the philatelic market. You open it up, and it's a request for payment of fees owed an estate, with a threat of a summons if the fees were not paid. Here's a little better example that went beyond Valence. It's the exact same firm, went beyond Valence, and again the recipient was deceased and unknown, so it came back, but this time it got the return to sender mark. The metropolitan return to sender mark in France, which makes it a nice piece. Here's one for a notice for a court appearance for the Court of Commerce from France, and again you notice it was a return to sender, and you notice the addressee is La Vieille Dame. In the Tours area, and I wondered what that was about. And when you get to the back, you can see again the person was unknown in La Vieille Dame, and I wondered what that could designate. And I thought, gee, could that be an old name for maybe a red light district or something like that? But no, that's not the case. if you go to Google, you see that harks back to the nuns, where they had a convent just outside of Tours. Here's one that's kind of interesting. It's a bill from the tax collector, a property tax bill from 1870. Interestingly, the part of the tax is based on the building's number of doors and windows. That was a quickie way of calculating a real estate value. And I've just kind of laughed at that. It's actually a pretty good idea. I went through, or my town went through, real estate reevaluation, and it was a very complex process, very expensive, and would have been much easier to count the windows and doors, and that probably would put houses in order. You can see this one is, it's got 92 francs for income on property, about 4 francs for the 4 openings, windows and doors. Interestingly, it was sent without envelope. Here's the address right here, Beauchamp, and care of a law firm in Angers. And there doesn't seem to have been a wrapper band or envelope for this, and it was directed, relating to a property in Saumur and Ile-de-Sol. And when you open it up, you can see all the details of the form, which is really quite nice. And you note it relates, it was mailed in Saumur, and I can't forget my own relationship to Saumur. My wife and I spent some time in the Loire Valley on one of our vacations in France, and we drove from Nantes. And as we made a turn in the road, all of a sudden the whole city of Saumur with this view just opens up with this absolutely spectacular chateau, just overlooking the city. I always remember that view. Here's an example from our president. It's a court summons from Algeria. It just serves to remind that Algeria was a department of France at these times, and the Algerian mail looks very much like the French mail. You could also put the stamps on the newspaper sheet before the printing and have the typographical printing cancel the stamp. And here's a particularly striking example of a cancellation. At least I've always enjoyed these things. I don't worry too much about the centering of the stamps. Catalog value was 230 euros, according to Ceres. It sold for 39, so it didn't bring a lot. Here's the same idea from the bear sale. This is the 2 pictures that he encloses with it. It's with the 1 centime laureated Napoleon. And he describes it again as a Ceres catalog of 2350 francs, a departing price of 700. And he notes it's superb. And when you blow up the stamp and look at it, the stamp is quite damaged. And not only is the stamp not in good shape, but he doesn't even note if you get the whole newspaper. Again, this one didn't sell. Here's one from Ceres again, very, very nice one, same newspaper, right at the time of the end of the Franco-Prussian War and the beginning of the Commune. I've always enjoyed newspapers from this period because you also get the news of the day. This is a quite spectacular copy, I think, of the 1 centime Bordeaux issue. But again, it didn't sell at an opening bid. And I'm not sure why. Sometimes you see these with addresses written in up here. As we move into the 1870s, we come, of course, to the type sage issue in the 1 centime green Napoleon. I haven't seen anything with that to put in this sale, but one that I have in my own material, of course, is with the much easier to get 1 centime black. And this is for someone who's a manufacturer of soaps and candles in Clichy, which is a Paris suburb. And if you look at the stamp, you notice there's another hand stamp underneath the date stamp, and I'm not quite sure what that is, and possibly somebody can, if they know what it is, could send a comment. I'm really most intrigued by the advertising in this one. You can see a lot of text on the right, and what he's highlighting are the bougie of Clichy, and those are the candles of Clichy that he manufactures. And he notes that the candle is without a doubt the most convenient, cleanest, and most luxurious mode of lighting, and it is also universally adopted, but not all candles are flawless. Some burn badly, give a dim light, lack nuance. Most of them burn too quickly, run and stain. Some give off an unpleasant smell. Almost all of them have a difficult ignition, but the bougie de Clichy has none of these faults. And then he goes on to describe in detail the candles that he's making. I particularly enjoy the part of the ad at the upper left, and we begin to see a little bit about his business. Pardon my French again, the Stérinerie et Savonnerie de Clichy. He is a manufacturer of stearic acid, oleic acid, and glycerin via the process of saponification. And his products are hard and soft soaps, and of course the candles. You can see from all the medals that he's submitted his products to competitions, and he's won gold and silver medals, and he's won medals all the way as far back as Napoleon III. And given I said I'm going to meander and wander around in this one, and here I really go. What does this ad make me think of? And the first thing I think of when I look at this ad is the continuum of science. That's a funny place to be. Soap was discovered about 5,000 years ago when early civilization boiled plant and animal fats with ashes from fires. And they created the chemical process we call saponification, or more simply, hydrolysis. The production of soap evolved over the millennia to afford the fine products prepared and sold by this merchant. And most recently, a study of the chemistry of soap suggests that the vesicles that it forms in water may have afforded protocells that enable the formation of complex molecules and systems that ultimately initiated life. Okay, boy, that's quite a bit to go over the centuries, over the millennia. I just thought I'd put in a little chemistry. At the left is stearic acid, with the gray spheres being carbons, the white hydrogens, and the red oxygens. And what happens when you stir soaps in water is the long chain fatty parts are happy together, and the polar part, the carboxylic acid at the top, they want to be together too, and hydrogen bond to water. So you begin to form these vesicles shown at the right. And what's been shown recently is the vesicles, the micellular structures, the liposomal structures, chemicals, simple chemicals that the geology of the earth produced in the first 500 million years, can move in there and start reacting and forming small peptides, small sugars, and molecules that start looking like RNA, that RNA nucleosides that can polymerize to RNA. The other thing that this ad reminds me of, and this is just my personal view of the French, but they have a wonderful attention to detail and quality of the local products, and sometimes everyday products that are produced in a variety of areas. And I've noted the medals this fellow won. And I think of the medals that are awarded every 4 years to the best craftspeople in France, called the Milieu Ouvrier de France. And of course, I remember Paul Bocuse, who received one of these medals, who was probably one of the most famous chefs in the world in the 70s, 80s, and 90s. I also remember walking up the Rue de Pyrénées to Alain Millet's house. We've had dinner many, many times with the Millets, and when you go up the Rue de Rivoli, you pass a lot of these shops that are selling these wonderful French products, and the ones I particularly remember are the boulangeries. We just don't have bread the way they do in France. And of course, my favorite, the patisseries. And Whenever I go to France, I'm not sure if, you're supposed to eat these things or maybe coat them in lacquer and preserve them because they're so beautiful. Certainly my bakery isn't anything like this in Westfield, New Jersey. So that was a little detour. Let's get back to the subject. Here's one from a Paris pharmacy selling, among other products, cod liver oil, which I remember taking as a kid. You can see these are designed for doctors specifically. And the introductory text tells about 3 products: the dragée, the cod liver oil, and a phosphatase. And then on the left, he describes the phosphate product. It's actually a gelatinous syrup of phosphate made from chalk, and it's useful for providing energy. It's used in the hospitals of Paris for bronchitis, rheumatism, maladies of the bone, intestines, good for children. And actually it probably was a pretty good medicine because it was calcium phosphate to a large extent. And that certainly was a supplement for bones. And it was also a buffer for the stomach, kind of the Maalox or Rolaids of the day. So that was pretty good. And in the back page, he's advertising the dragées digestif, and I didn't know about these. You look them up, and they're sugar-coated almonds, which again he cites the diseases that they're useful for. I'm not sure about the use there, but they do survive today. Not so much for medicine, but for enjoyment, as Loic informed me, as gifts to people who attend French christenings and maybe weddings. And actually, my wife pointed out when she was a young girl in her Italian side of the family, they actually did something quite similar. Now we get to the Mairie and the Bagnères de Luchon. Bagnères de Luchon was a small village located in the Pyrenees Mountains at the Spanish border. And this little advertisement is a medical advisory on the wonders of the local spa water. And the advisory was produced by the mayor's office. And it was mailed primarily to doctors. And I just brought up a picture of Bagnères de Luchon, what a town looked like in France in 1900. You see the regular commercial street with the church, and then in the background, of course, the Pyrenees Mountains, which are quite spectacular. Turns out Loic has actually visited this town many times. He has a good friend there, but neither of us have availed ourselves of the French spas. The advertising, of course, relates to the French spas, and they note they have multiple sources. You can see the degrees of the water that comes out. It's also sulfurated to various degrees. It's used in the traditional bathing spa treatments that they do. It's also used to the right as medications, and they particularly name rheumatism and syphilis, and it also can be used for inhalation for asthma, bronchitis, and tuberculosis. So that's quite a spectacular array of treatments. And as if by magic, the other day I was reading a recent New Yorker magazine, and it was an update on French spa treatments, which I thought was pretty interesting, by one Lauren Collins. And she begins by saying, let's say that you suffer from arthritis. And then she names about 50 diseases, 50 different diseases. And she also notes, you also crucially live in France. You go to the doctor writes a prescription for thermal cure, indicating to which of the country's accredited spas you'll be sent. And she notes that about 600,000 prescriptions were written for French spa treatment in 2019, and another 3 million people went to spas as their own expense. And I was just thinking, the way I've been feeling lately, I think I could use a couple weeks at a nice French spa. Here's an ad for animal health products. Again, the one Centime rate. And if you open it up, he's got treatments for repair of skin and hair diseases of animals. He's got elixirs for internal treatment, and he's got a series of medications for treatment of chickens. When you grow chickens in large groups, they're very, very susceptible to various diseases. This is one I completely forgot about that I even had. It's actually a list of prices current. It's also the first one with the Type Blanc stamp. It's a list of prices current for the selling of American grapevines in France, and this is 1904. And you wonder what's going on here. And of course, you've got to go back to the late 19th century. And much of Europe, and particularly France, was decimated by phylloxera, a disease of the grapevines, and it caused quite an interruption in production of French wine. And in response, the French brought in American plants for both planting and I can't think of the word now, grafting. So many American plants were grafted onto French roots. And this fellow, this concern, actually, this is a 6-page listing, front and back of the plants that he's selling from America, which were much more resistant to phylloxera. And just on the back, you can see if you buy his products, what would happen to your vineyard in terms of the production of grapes. Here's one from an ad from a maker of shoes. I was surprised by the first word there, C-A-O-U-T-C-H-O-U-C. That's French for rubber. I was surprised to see the English use of snow boots for snow boots. I thought they'd use a French term. When we were in France in the 80s on vacation, compact discs became very fashionable, new way of recording music. We called them compact discs in America, and they quickly became CDs. The French Academy, which was founded in 1634, is responsible for polishing and fine-tuning the French language and determines whether or not certain words are acceptable candidates. Its 40 members set the rules that govern new words, what gender they are, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And I was surprised to see snow boots in this ad. At this time, the Academy came up for compact discs. The official French name was Le Disque Alphanumérique, but the French population ignored that and called them compact discs and CDs anyway. At the same time we were there, the first Burger King opened in France, and France was struggling as how to translate home of the Big Whopper. And I'm never quite sure how that one came out. As you can see, it's a nice ad for the fabrication of children's and women's shoes. And the last one with the Type Blanc is for a seller of exquisite oysters who claims that he can deliver them all over Europe without any deterioration. They arrived in perfect condition. I can't open this because of the hinging at the left. I'll ruin the wrapper band. So we can only look at the back, and he talks about how he preserves the oysters, how you could subscribe, and he shows a special oyster shucker that he sells. It was also possible at this time to have a cash account with the post office. These next few are from Paris, and avoid completely the use of stamps. And you can see this ad from a department store when we put this together, and the pilgrimage of Saint-Jean. You can see they have special treatment for members of the ecclesiastical and religious communities, which is sort of interesting. I haven't opened this one up, so I don't know what's inside. Here's one for medical equipment. It's got a interesting Paris double circle date stamp from the 1880s and a nice receiver. And when you open it up, you see some of the equipment they sell, something for ladies' baths. We won't go into details on that. A pharmacy that you can carry with you on trips to the country. Some forceps at the bottom, a medical kit. You go to the next page and you see a device for a gathering and storing mother's milk, a hernia belt. And at the bottom, I wasn't sure what the one in the middle was. I thought it might be a French chastity belt for males, but it's not. It's some sort of device for children. Here's one for a maker of mirrors and glass products. Again, I haven't opened it. Different styles of cancellations. And finally, one for a maker of street lamps who happened to be at 25 Rue Drouot in Paris. And you can see from the wrapper band, this was designed specifically to send to mayors of towns and villages to offer street lighting products. And I've always been fascinated by these and enjoyed them when we go to France. It's almost a little subcategory of tourism that you can spend some time enjoying them. And here's a typical street light that you can see in Paris from this period. Certainly, they also caught the eyes of the artists of the time, and some Google information. In 1894, Paris possessed 461 electric arc lamps and 53,000 gas lights. And it certainly was the city of light, and still is pretty much the city of light. Of course, 25 Rue Drouot today is a stamp shop, and possibly some of you have been there or bought some of the wares of Cafilla, which is in that location. What about examples from the offices and colonies? Here's one from Indochina that was from my group type collection, from Hanoi to a small village in Annam. Unfortunately, the printed matter is missing. And another that I had is from the office at Canton that was refused by the addressee and marked return to sender. Again, there's no printed matter with it. There's one other of these that I've seen that David Wrigley is offering right now. Here's one from Alain Herpé's collection. Alain is the president of Colfra. He showed this earlier in the year. It's 1 centime printed matter rate to someone aboard a ship in the Mediterranean. I always enjoy those. Here's one I got from Loic's collection. He sent along, and it's a 1 centime rate from Moramanga, Madagascar, on a telegram official envelope addressed to a philatelist. So maybe this one's a little suspicious. And just I'll take a little walk into telegram letters for a moment, starting with Moramangana, was a small town on the route between Tananarive and Tamatave. Tananarive is the capital and major city in Madagascar. In the Google map, it shows as Antananarivo. If you continue east, you come to Moramanga, a town on the way, and then you go up north, you come to Tomasina, which is Tamatave, which was the major port city in Madagascar where the packets called. And typically, these are what telegram letters look like. They're normally sent from inland telegraph offices to large offices where they're mailed to their final destination at normal rates. And the purpose of this is to obviate the slow overland transport of letters deep within countries. And the top two are telegram letters that came from the office at Tamatave, the port city of Madagascar, to an established firm in Lyon. You can see one is the official telegram envelope. The other is just a post office envelope that's been modified for telegram use at the proper 50 centime registered rates for both of them. Then at the lower left is one from Majunga, which is a port city on the west side, northwest side of Madagascar. So a telegram came in, it was transcribed and then mailed on at the proper 15 centime French community rate to Marseille. And I had many of these from various colonies. And here's one from Gabon. It's actually a telegram letter sheet. It's not an envelope. And it was received at the small village of Cap Lopez in 1906, posted to an addressee in that village. But the addressee was apparently not there, and it was forwarded to Tlemcen, Algeria, where it bears a February 25th receiver. Also, telegram letters could be sent under the military franchise system when you tried to reach someone in the military who was in a distant place. This one was sent to the office at Bobo del Lasso in the French Sudan, which is a nice example. And I thought, just to go way out here, a most unusual telegram letter that was under the franchise system. This is a case where the initiating letter was sent from a remote village lacking land connection to the postal system, and the optical telegraph system was used to send the letter to a nearby small village that had a land connection with the postal system. And there's the way on the right, there's the system for sending these optical telegrams between post offices. It's really quite interesting and complex. Here's a franchise example via the optical telegraph. It originated in the small village that's Tsitak. I won't try and pronounce it, but apparently that village was not tied to the regular postal system. So they used the optical telegraph in this village, and it has a validation at the lower left, optique, and the name of the village and the local lieutenant there who was responsible. And essentially all the information on this envelope, plus the 4 pages of letter that are inside, were sent by the optical telegraph to the village of Akavandra, which at that time had a newly opened post office that had been assigned provisional council 15 in the Madagascar system while it was awaiting its regular date stamp. And just here's a showing of part of the letter, and to me it's quite amazing that all that could go by optical telegram. So what do we know about telegram letters? They were often sent from smaller villages to large towns connected to the international mail system to speed delivery. They're also sent to residents in large and small villages, also to speed delivery. They were franked at the standard rates, 10, 15, or 25 centimes, and then for registry, 35, 40, or 50 centimes. They were sent to members of the military under the franchise system with free postage. Just as a note, I've never seen one at the 15 centime military concession rate. I've also never seen anything that validates a 1 centime telegram rate. So my thoughts on this is a philatelic letter that was a handback to the creator at the Moramanga post office. I'm not aware, as I said, of any 1 centime telegram letter rates. I've never heard of a 1 centime drop letter rates. And so if this were a true postal item, it should have probably a 15 centime stamp on it, or maybe a 10 for local postage. And I should note there was no special telegram rate for philatelists. However, the Madagascar post offices were very compliant with requests from philatelists. This letter was addressed to and by Dr. Alfred Volzko, who was a famous Berlin zoologist who traveled throughout Madagascar, gathering mineral, plant, and animal specimens, which he sent back to scientists in Europe for study. He's left a legacy of genuine correspondence relating to his work and travels in Madagascar, which I've documented in the Collectors Club Philatelist. He was also an avid philatelist and created many philatelic items for himself and his friends with the full cooperation of the postal system. And here we see a wrapper band supporting a bisect of the 4 centime group type stamp to pay the apparent 2 centime printed matter rate on an open item he posted to himself in Tuliar in 1904. This was at the height of what I call the bisectomania period in Madagascar postal history. And it's actually quite a nice item, but I think very philatelic in origin. Just another letter from the same fellow, was written by Professor Volzko, posted from Sainte Marie de Madagascar, also in 1904. and it's franked with a bisect of the 15 centime zebu issue, presumably prepaying the 5 centime printed matter rate. It's marked printed matter with an overpayment of 2.5 centimes. But the letter was sealed and required a 25 centime stamp to go to Germany. So the post office at St. Marie hid it with a T and triangle, as you can see. And it was forwarded to the destination of Casale. But the addressee had moved on to Strasbourg, where it was forwarded further. And it was finally charged at the 40 Pfennig due rate, double the 20 Pfennig international rate, with the postage stamp being totally ignored. But again, you know, philatelists were given a wide berth in Madagascar to help create items. Other items that I think are philatelic, you see 1 centime colonial postal cards. They don't have wrapper bands, and they never have arrivals. So I think these were handbacks too. This is a very nice one actually from Anjouan, from the Mayotte complex up north, and one from Huihao that's in the stock of David Wrigley. But these show no evidence of having been through the post office. And here's one I just pulled off Delcamp, proper treatment of a 1 centime franking without a wrapper band. And you can see it's marked T with triangle, and when it gets to destination, it's short 4 centimes relative to the 5 centime rate. So it's charged 8 centimes postage due. So are there any examples of a real 1 centime rate on an envelope? And I had one in the group type collection, which I'm showing here. You see, it's a small envelope from Martinique, canceled in Martinique, addressed to a resident at the capital of Saint-Pierre in Martinique. And this is a known addressee and merchant in Saint-Pierre. So it's a small unsealed envelope to Saint-Pierre at the apparent 1 centime rate. I purchased this in 1983 at a New York stamp show. It was in the stock of one of the smaller dealers who had an international stock, and I bought a couple of covers from him every year. I had seen 2 centime printed matter rates for the group type. I had the 2 1 centime that I already showed you. And I was seriously concerned about this being some sort of philatelic creation or maybe an outright fraud when I bought it, but I thought I could sustain the loss. And no one knew at the time, no one I knew at the time in the USA or France could provide any information on this cover. And after many months, I happened to be passing the New York Public Library one day, and I said, well, let's stop in and see what I can find out. So I went to the Martinique section of the card catalog and ultimately found a 1900s annual volume for the colony. And I was able to get it, and I started reading the chapter from the post office. And it turns out there was a special 1 centime rate in Martinique for the mailing of tickets within its village or town. And normally these were lottery tickets. So I had this envelope for many, many months. And for the first time, I took the flap out and looked inside. And I found a ferry ticket from Fort-de-France to Saint-Pierre. It's actually a first-class ferry ticket. Fort-de-France is the major commercial center in Martinique. So I was absolutely delighted to find a ticket in this envelope. And just a map of Martinique, you can see Fort-de-France, which is the major commercial center, and the capital of Saint-Pierre, which is about 50 miles north. And the ferry ran regularly, carrying people, goods, and of course mail between the two cities, city and town. Question is, why does this ticket still exist? And one thing we know is the town of Saint-Pierre was destroyed by the eruption of Mont Pelée on May 7th, 1902, and the ferry to Fort-de-France ceased service because Saint-Pierre no longer existed. The other thing is this ticket may be used. It is torn halfway. Maybe it was sent as a receipt to the addressee, And when my wife and I traveled around France to a lot of small things, they often have these small, or they had these small paper tickets that you would get at a cashier, and then there'd be someone at the entrance who would just tear the ticket to show that it had been used. Or maybe there's another reason that I'm not aware of. There's the tear in the in the ticket. This is Saint-Pierre on May 9th, 1902. 30,000 people died, both in the city and on ships in the harbor. There was one survivor in a underground prison who made it out. So can we determine the date of use of this? And the black on black cancellation is unreadable. Retro Reveal, an image enhancing software package, does not work on this. I've tried it. Possibly a surface reflectance optical technique would show more of the date stamp, or maybe X-ray fluorescence, but I've never done those. Or possibly we'll never know the date of posting. However, I believe this to be a genuine a 1 centime franking that traveled within the town of Saint-Pierre and was not caught in the eruption of Mount Pelée for whatever the reason. I just wanted to show you this retro reveal program. Here's something from my fraud collection. Looks like it's from Las Palmas, Canary Islands. There's a return address that's kind of hard to read, and you give it the retro reveal processing, and you can see the Canary Islands Oxypathor Company. You see the full originating address, and that's an important piece of information for my fraud collection. Unfortunately, retro reveal has been removed from the web. We don't know why, we don't know where it is, and we're trying to find out what's going on. Finally, the last section of my talk is on the wrapper banded postcards. It was possible to send a postcard at a 1 centime rate if you put a wrapper band around it. I've seen a number of examples from France. I've seen a few examples from some French offices via Colfra and the FCPS virtual meetings. I've never seen an example franked with group type, and I would be delighted to see if anyone has seen one or heard of one. And here are a couple of examples. Here's a ticket, not a postcard, for a conference of Christian mothers, which is interesting. Another one for a wholesale seller of herbs and a seller of herbs for druggists and distillers. Interesting aspect. Here's another one. Someone has created an advertising postcard. It's an ad for a vacation resort in the Bordeaux area owned by a Monsieur Ranceret. And to get the 1 centime rate, put the wrapper band around it with the 1 centime stamp. And if you look at that stamp, you wonder, is this an example of the infamous Prussian blue? It has that bluish aspect. And my answer is, I think not. You look at the back, and you find details on the resort and bookings, et cetera, et cetera. Here's one to bring us back to Algeria for a firm that sells dates and nutmegs. A nice advertisement. When you turn it over, you not only see the cachet of the firm, but an arrival date stamp to show you it's been through the mail. You also see these the 1 centime postcards, but with, again, no with the typage stamps, but no arrivals. And I think these again were handbacks at the post office. And I have a couple from Alain's collection, again from Colfra, this from a vineyard in Algeria to France. And finally, we do have one from Alain on a postcard, a genuine postcard with the wrapper band address and message to show how these things were done. So that's bringing me to the end of this talk. And question you might be wondering about is, why did I never turn this accumulation of material into an exhibit or an article? And the answer is, of course, this, the 1 centime Prussian blue. Okay, on the left is one of the most famous unused examples of the Prussian blue that was sold by Spink most recently, and I believe it was called the Hermione collection. And at the right is another example of used 1 centime Prussian blue. And this was sold by the Robert Siegel firm, Scott Treppel, not too long ago. Both of these have signatures and extensive certificates attesting to the fact that they are the real ferrocyanide dye. And these are Prussian blues. What do we know about the Prussian blue? The catalog value used singly on wrapper is 32,000 euros. Okay, that's enough to stop anybody. I actually saw a 1-frame exhibit, I think maybe it was 6 pages of this stamp at a stamp show in Paris in the 1980s. It had singles, multiples, uses on cover, singly and with other stamps. If I ever did an exhibit, the first question from the judges would be, where's your Prussian blue? And I'm sure if I ever did an article, the first question from the editor would be, where's your Prussian blue? So that was always a deterrent. I thought I'd go to eBay and see what might happen if you tried to buy a Prussian blue. And so I typed 1 centime Prussian blue in, and this offering from Hipstamp came up. Hipstamp is one of the biggest sellers on eBay. And I think the APS has formed a liaison with them to help sell the material that the APS is selling on behalf of its members. So this is what came up, and you can see it's $3,000 just for the stamp. However, if you compare that stamp with the Siegel used stamp that was sold, and I think there's a very serious discrepancy in the color of the background on that stamp. And I should note that I was a member of the expert staff for the APS for 25 years, reviewing French area material. And I looked at probably 30 1 centime black tissage stamps for the possibility of them being the Prussian blue color. And I never saw one out of the 30. Okay, they were always something else. My example on the postcard from the vacation place is, I believe that's the cobalt blue, not the Prussian blue. So the Prussian blue stamp is really very, very difficult to get anyway. They're just not available. And that's the end of my talk. And I thought I'm going to try and end in an unusual way. See if we can. I'd like to merge philately and music. And see if I can do that. Let's see. Ken, I think I'm going to, oh, okay, I've stopped the share. Now I'm going to share again.
While you're looking, I will point out that in the chat, Loic has given us an alternative to where we might try to get something like retro reveal. So
okay.
I'll make a note of that.
I got to where I am now, and I hope this is going to work. Let's see.
I gave a letter to the postman. He put it in his sack. Bright and early next morning, he brought my letter. She wrote upon it, return to sender, address unknown, no such number.
Thanks, Ed.
Okay.
Very appropriately philatelic.
Yes. I may be the first one to have worked Elvis Presley into a philatelic talk without having a Presley stamp.
Certainly the first one that would be a France and Colonies presentation. All right, let's have questions and comments for Ed. If anybody's interested, remember to unmute. Yeah, Tom Broadhead.
Yeah, Ed, have you come across any of these? I think they're 1920s, 1930s vintage election postcards with the 1 centime sower.
No, I normally don't pay attention to material that recent. I kind of stop at World War I. But I have seen a 1 centime electoral matter printed booklet with, I believe it was the 1 centime tissage black on it.
Okay.
I know that postal, pardon me, the electoral matter was traveled at the 1 centime rate, but they're extremely rare. I saw there's a 1 centime rate from Saint Pierre and Miquelon that's on Delcamp right now from, I believe, the 20s. But again, that's out of my normal range.
Okay, thanks.
As a collector and exhibitor of French Congo's 1900 pictorial issue, they are easy to find on Delcamp, 1 centime, panther or leopard stamps, and no address, just to cancel.
Okay, Loic, you said there's something that might be available for to replace retro reveal.
Yeah, I found on a forum that I think there was a group of students that had worked on retro reveal, and pretty much something happened. I think they left the university. The university didn't renew their, the fees to host the domain or whatever that was. The retro reveal went dark, but some guy in Germany put something online that pretty much does the same. So it's at postmark-reveal.com.
Could you send that to me?
Yeah, of course I will. It's in the chat as well, but I shoot you an email with that URL. No problem.
Okay. Have you used it?
Yeah.
And it's easy to use?
Yeah. The same. You upload your image and then you get all the different renditions with
okay.
All online.
Very good. It's a very useful program.
Thanks,
Hi,
Louis.
Ed, this is
Larry, go ahead.
yeah. Hi, Ed. Thank you very much. Fascinating presentation. I was wondering how you determine which of those items you slid open and which you think are not appropriate to do so.
If they're going to stick together, I will slit them open. Okay. And if they're not going to stick together, I don't slit them open. Some of them, if you cut one of the bands, nothing's holding it, so the band's just going to come off. Okay. Others, the stamp is holding it in place. Some are already open, so I don't have to worry about it. But I just to me, it's an interesting area to collect. I mean, crisscross between or amongst the things like obviously my love of France and also chemistry. I can even get into chemistry with these things, and diseases of plants, who knows?
Great,
Bruce,
thank you.
Bruce, you had a question.
Yes, I've seen pre-printed wrappers with Sage stamps on them, postal stationery. Have you run across those?
Yeah, they're pretty common. For some reason, I never saw one while I was putting this together, but I was looking on Delcamp actually yesterday or the day before, and there are a number on Delcamp, the 1 centime. They also came out with similar wrappers, type du bois, for the colonies, and those are extremely difficult to get properly used. But I think the type sage ones are reasonably straightforward to get. But you probably have to, be in France and go through dealers' boxes and stuff like that to pull them out there.
I have a few of them, but only mint.
Those are generally quite easy to get.
Anybody else?
Okay.
I enjoyed the notice about the window tax.
Yeah, that was actually that was I presented that document to Loic, and because it's just too much for me to translate, and he was the one who picked up on that. And as I said, I feel that it would be marvelous to do a little study of house evaluations, say in my hometown here, and see if you come out with the same tax structure. And it'd be very simple just to count windows and doors.
Window tax in England was imposed in 1696 and not withdrawn until 1851.
Wow.
And you can still see houses of that era where the windows have been bricked up to avoid paying the tax.
But then you live in the dark.
Yeah, but you don't pay as much.
Bruce,
I had an aunt that lived in England in a 14th century house, and somewhere along that line, the top story windows were bricked up.
Yeah.
Tom Broadhead.
Yeah, Ed, I want to especially thank you for leading us on the ramble through a little bit of organic chemistry related to your professional background. I thought that was great value added. Thank you.
Well, I'm almost 20 years into retirement and pretty far from chemistry, but one of the things I've been keeping up with is the origin of life chemistry. There are big programs in that, and it's chemists, geologists, physicists, and biologists who are all approaching this area from their own points of view, and that happened to be a chemistry point of view, since I was a chemist, and it's from actually a Harvard professor who's moving to Chicago, who's a Nobel laureate, and he's now working in this field. So, but to me, it's just interesting how, chemistry keeps going. Okay.
Anybody else?
Well, just thank you as well, Ed, for the little trip throughout France and the colonies. I mean, Saumur and Bagnères de Luchon, for whoever ever goes to France and spends some time there, are two beautiful cities to visit. So
we never got to Luchon, but I think it's called Bagnères de Bigorre. Is that?
Those are two different ones.
Right. It's
yeah. Bagnères de Bigorre is a little bit further west, I believe, in the Pyrenees, and Bagnères de Luchon is basically all of those cities are basically, Bagnères means that you have a bath. Yeah.
Bath. Yeah.
There's spa town. Yeah.
When we stayed in this little village, we actually stayed in a French family resort, and we were the only Americans there. We're the only well, I was a non-French speaker. My wife spoke French, and when we came into the dining room for dinner that night, the people were talking, and as we walked in, silence developed. You could hear the people saying, "Les Américains, les Américains," and the Americans, the word had gotten around, Americans were staying there, and they were watching us. And of course, my wife did all the ordering in French. It was ordering a set meal, so there wasn't much to say. But the thing she had noted is that the wine that was thought to go with this meal was called, pardon my French again, le pelure de l'oignon, the onion skin.
Pelure d'oignon, yeah.
It's a inexpensive French rosé, and as soon as she asked for that wine, we were certified okay by the population there, and they said these guys can stay. So we had a nice time, in this French family resort for an evening.
Yep.
All right. I will, at this point, thank Ed again for a very entertaining presentation. And I want to give full credit to the ones coming up. So October 23rd is our next Zoom meeting. The speaker who has been on today listening to Ed is Jeff Bone. He is going to talk to us about the experimental, in quotation marks, Franco-British accountancy markings of August 1852. And that he is an expert on cross-border postal markings. So this should be very interesting. November 18th, we're going, which is a week early because of the American Thanksgiving Day holiday, is going to be a show and tell. And the way that I would like to do this is to have those of you who would like to participate send a scan or 2 or 3 with some brief comments about a philatelic item. And I will assemble a PowerPoint file that we will then share, and each of us will take turns talking about our item or items when they come up on the screen. I will not put identifying names in there because of the recording and because of the PowerPoint that will end up on our website as a PDF. But I just want to put everybody on notice, and we'll send those instructions out with a constant comment message after the October meeting. So that's today's presentation. Does anybody else have any comments for the good of the order? Ed, thanks again from all of us, and thanks to all of you on at least 2 continents who have joined us today. And we look forward to seeing you all again in October.
Okay, thank you, Ed.
Thank you all for coming.
Thank you, take care. Have a fantastic day.
Bye-bye.
Thank you, Ed. Bye.
Bye now.
Bye. Thank you, Ed.